Warhammer 40k fans have been enjoying some plethora of good Warhammer games lately, from Inquisitor Martyr to Bolt Gun to Darktide to Space Marine 2, the latest and the most played Warhammer 40k game on Steam right now. But as awesome as that is, that Space Marine 2 is doing so well, a lot of people had started to speculate some things. The biggest one that I started seeing, which has kind of died down now, I think people finally realize, like, it's okay, guys, is that it was Space Marine 2 versus Helldivers 2. While yes, that is a good, interesting concept, especially with how the Helldivers fanbase felt betrayed and stuff like that, I wanted to ask a question that's a little more similar to Space Marine 2. What about Darktide? Everybody knows Warhammer 40k Darktide, the game by Fat Shark, and one of my most popular look-into videos for my Summer of Warhammer 40k series. I personally love Darktide. I love it so much. It's such a fun game, and the newest update for it has been insanely awesome. The feedback for it is immense, so many good quality of life changes, and so many good changes in general that everyone should be proud of. And if you haven't tried Fat Shark's Darktide yet, I'm kind of shocked if you're a big Warhammer 40k fan. This update really did do amazing. But on the other side, Space Marine 2 came out and Season 2 was about to start, where we got our first trailer of those new enemies. God, I can't wait to slap a power sword against that. Both are tremendous games, and both equally deserve the praise that they're getting, especially with the fixes of Darktide and just Space Marine 2 being fucking awesome from right out the get-go. God forbid a game comes out and is just good from the beginning. But I wanted to do something. Like I said earlier, with the Helldivers 2 versus Space Marine 2, yeah, it's a good argument, but I feel like they're kind of too different to do. What about putting a Warhammer 40k game against another Warhammer 40k game? So that's what we're going to do today. Today we are going to be looking at the two most popular Warhammer 40k modern games, and judging them by their story, their weapons, the hub, customization, enemy types, levels, and anything else I can think of. So, without further ado, Aurora, kick us off.
Darktide versus Space Marine 2.
The first thing I want to look at when it comes to these two games is obviously, let's start with the story. Now, Space Marine 2's story, you know it, you love it. Titus is back, coming from the Death Watch, and joining up with the Ultramarines again, getting demoted in the process, and taking on the hordes of Tyranids that have invaded the planet of Kodaku. As you're fighting along the way, you learn that they're trying to rebuild the energy cell that they made in Space Marine 1 that caused Titus to be thought of as a heretic because he could resist the warp so good. Then you find out the heretics are here as well. The Chaos Marines and the Thousand Suns are also here as well. Which, fun fact, apparently this is like one of the first times the Thousand Suns in years have been represented in something, let alone being part of one of the most popular Warhammer 40k games of all time. As you're going through, you stop the Tyranid Horde, you stop the weapon from being created by the Adeptus Mechanicus, causing problems once again, and you defeat the Chaos Thousand Suns leader. As you're going through, you're fighting waves of enemies, hordes of enemies, you're doing all this stuff. You get to meet famous characters from Warhammer 40k, you get to also see these amazing cinematic cutscenes, you get to basically play the game, and the melee combat is so good, all that good stuff. As you're going through the story, I wanted more, and I'm so glad that the story is technically not over with their operations that are soon to be coming. Now, obviously, I gave a very brief description of the story. Now let's go ahead and look at Darktide's story. Joking aside, the Darktide story is definitely not as advanced as the Space Marine 2 story. You start out on a prison ship heading to God knows where, as you have been declared a heretic among the Imperium. As you accidentally get saved from your cell by the Nurgle cultists accidentally exploding one of their poxbursters next to you to free one of their guys, you go through the ship, save the people that called you a heretic, and then escape from the hordes of Nurgle Chaos units. You are then brought to the Morning Star, which is basically your hub, and you are told to start basically earning their trust back again. As you're going through these missions, you're going through the sewers, you're going through everything, some stuff that a reject would go through. You then soon learn after that there is apparently a traitor among all of you. And you are suspect number 1, of course, because we need a plot. And then you just continue the missions as normal. Every couple of levels, you'll be called to talk to someone. They'll say they still don't trust you, and then you move on. The last 2, they start to trust you. They're narrowing down who the heretics are and all that stuff, and it's looking like it's you. You get to the final cutscene, they're gonna shoot you. It's you, but you know the plot, so this isn't a shock. The traitor was right next to you all this time. What the shock was, though, was that they knew, apparently. You've proven yourself. They just like to do a little haha rolling trolling over here, as they shoot the traitor dead in the back, announcing you as a member of the Inquisition, an Inquisitor. You went from reject to Inquisitor, and that is it for the story. Now you continue to fight the forces of Nurgle. So what is it? So I guess the story just kind of ends when you become an Inquisitor, because they're still calling you a reject. But those are the 2 stories for the games, Darktide and Space Marine 2. Now, it might come to no shock that I'm going to tell you this easily. Space Marine 2 wins when it comes to this. There's a more in-depth story, there's an actual campaign, it's something you can play single player and stuff like that. Darktide, there is a campaign with lore being spoken around with while you're in the middle of the mission. Hopefully you can hear it though, as in my previous video, sometimes you just can't hear it. Wait, what? I can't hear you! What? What is she saying? I'm literally busy right now. Are you giving me lore? Send help! Who said 4 people was a good idea? Space Marine 2 wins when it comes to stories.
What is your duty? To serve the Emperor's will.
Now we're going to move on to the weapons, and I think you're going to be kind of shocked with the results. With the Astartes, we have bolt guns, 1 plasma gun, and a melter rifle. There is a bunch of bolt weapons in here that Space Marines can be able to wield. From some of the weakest, the auto bolt rifle, to some of the strongest, like the multi-melta or the plasma incinerator. And these weapons do pack a punch. These weapons feel so nice to use and so satisfying. You really do feel like you're using a weapon that is shooting cartridges that are so powerful that they need to be basically mini missiles powered to fire and launch to get the full impact of what these things are. Basically, this is a 50 cal on crack. And while depending on the difficulty, you'll feel like they're kind of weak, even though I personally don't feel that, but I know that's a big complaint out there, that the weapons feel weak for what they're supposed to be lore-wise. It's also a video game. You're not gonna one-shot everything. No matter how powerful and lore accurate the weapons are. It's a horde shooter, we need to kill. But these weapons feel amazing with how the shooting works as well. You are able to, basically you aim down third person. You can only aim on one side though, which Saber is not budging on. People have already been asking to switch camera angles. They're not gonna do that. Apparently it's too much work, which is crazy to me. But like I said, the weapons feel good. You have the auto bolt rifle, which is basically your standard assault rifle. You have the bolt gun itself, this high-powered, slow fire rate weapon that you can attach a grenade launcher to. This high-powered, slow fire rate that you can attach a grenade launcher to. You have the plasma incinerator, which is basically you're shooting a giant plasma ball and it's launching kind of like a grenade. You gotta arc it a little bit. It's awesome. It's very satisfying to use. The heavy bolter, which is such a beautiful weapon. I love it to death. It's so nice, especially when you upgrade that to gold. Oh, I am so ready for Horde mode at Season 4. But not only that, you are able to actually upgrade and customize these weapons, which it does. They are preset customizations, but you can customize nonetheless. Being able to add ribbons, gold plating, wrapping stuff around it, chains, etc. All stuff to kind of utilize and make yourself look kind of unique against other Space Marines. With so many cosmetic options and more on the way, you might find it shocking to find someone with like the same loadout of weapon customization as you. But I digress, this game does not only have guns, it also has melee weapons, and oh my god, do they feel good. The melee weapons in this game, while not as many as Darktide, are so much better than Darktide when it comes to it. You have the chain swords and the power swords and the fucking power fist and the combat knife. Those are all your melee weapons, and while that's not a lot, they all function so differently that they're all so satisfying to use. The chainsword excesses in basically clearing around the area, and then your finishers have freaking, you're sawing people in half, doing all this cool stuff. The power sword, which is very unique in this game, you have two fighting stances. One for more dueling against enemies, like fighting a giant enemy of some sorts, like a Carnifex or a Bone Sword Tyrannid. And then you can instantly swap it to like the Horde clearing mode where you're doing wide slashes and stuff like that to help clear out the tiny Tyrannids away from you. You have the Power Fist, which basically the light attacks are your dueling, and then your heavy attacks will shoot an AoE attack in that general direction, kind of omnidirectional, in that general direction. Not only that, you do have, I almost forgot because it's only for the assault class, you have the Thunder Hammer, and the Thunder Hammer is insane, and it's a shame that it's only on the assault class. That's a weapon that is so fun to use, and it fits perfectly there. I just wish we could use it in other classes. Not only do you have these weapons, you have executions. Now, I just praised the crap out of Space Marine 2 when it came to its weapons, right? Well, Darktide isn't going down without a fight. Let's get into their stuff right now. Darktide has more weapons and more melee weapons as well. Now, it is a lot more simple. There are, let's start with cosmetics. Cosmetics, they are in the game. You can put little things on your weapons and just like little charm. You can put little charms on your weapons, and that will help, you know, you'll be able to see it every now and then. Don't expect to see it the entire time. And cosmetics for the weapons, unfortunately, most of them are for paying. Like, you have to pay to get them. But when it comes to leveling up weapons and using them, weapons are very, very awesome. For starters, with gun, every weapon has a special unique attack to them. For example, the Braceado gun, if you hit the special attack button, you will bash the enemies. If you have a las gun, you will turn on a flashlight to help you with dark areas. If you have a pistol, you will shove the enemies with your other hand. If you have a chainsword, you will rev the chainsword up to start cleaving through enemies very viscerally. If you have a power hammer, you can charge it up for a giant slam attack. For a giant attack that slams into the enemies and sends them flying. If you have a rapier, you will stab right through them and do some extra crit damage. If you have a tomahawk, you will spin it around and you will gash at them with the other side of the tomahawk. And many, many more. All the weapons in this game feel amazing as well. It's truly kind of crazy when you compare it to Space Marine 2. Like, they're pretty up there, like, they're pretty even out. You can also level up these weapons as well. Darktide uses a gear score system, so there is kind of a random chance of getting a good weapon, but they just added something to Darktide that is really amazing, and something fans have been begging for. The itemization. The itemization, before when you leveled up guns, you would get a random chance at a perk. You could then sacrifice this weapon to keep that perk, store it in your storage, and then if you get another weapon of the same kind that you like, you can then swap out the perk for that, better stats, better gear, stuff like that. Darktide has introduced itemization, so now you can actually level up weapons, which is so fun. It's another reason to keep playing the game. I almost have my Braceado gun fully max leveled, and I can't wait for it. As you level this up, while it's still relatively new and I'm still understanding it, I'll do my best to explain it. You will basically be allowed to start getting higher gear score weapons. The max gear score that I've heard is like 510. One of the levels for the mastery is being able to get over 510 weapons easier. I think that's how it's going to work. I'm going to get to it and figure it out. But you're able to level up the perks of your itemization. So you can make the perks even deadlier the more you play with that weapon. And that's so awesome. Like, you can make your reload speed even faster. You can do increased damage if they're in your, like, you can do increased damage if they're like right in your face and you're firing lead right into them. And it'll do more damage because they're closer to you, or vice versa. There's so many, and it's so new to me, I can't go into all of it right now. But I will say this, it is worth checking out, and you will make your weapons a lot more unique and what you want instead of RNG guessing. It took forever for us to get this, but everyone I know is happy that it's finally here, and it's beautiful. So when it comes to weapons, Space Marine 2 versus Darktide, I'm gonna be honest, this is hard. Like, before the Locked and Loaded update for Darktide, I would have said easily this is Space Marine 2. But with both of them having such tremendous weapon types, Darktide offers more, but Space Marine 2 weapons feel better. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm putting it as a draw. They're both too different, but too awesome. They're both for two different people, but also can loop lopside on each other. They're both really good. Locked and Loaded really made it keep up with Space Marine 2. And for that, I'm going to give a point to both of them. They both get it when it comes to weapons. Now we're going to be looking to, this one should be relatively quick, it's the hub area in Darktide and Space Marine 2. The Morning Star versus the Launch Bay. So the Morning Star has been around for a while, but there hasn't been too many updates to it except for basically the new penance area. But in the Morning Star area, you can see random players, you can connect with other players, you're able to access the Brunt's Armory, you're able to upgrade your weapons, dismantle, salvage, access the cosmetic store, access the premium cosmetic store, aka pay with real money, and test your weapons in the training or the meat grinder area, as well as obviously going to the center and selecting a mission to join. That is the hub area. You can do basically anything you want. Oh, you can also change your look too, but I don't ever change my looks because I like the way my characters look. All of that you can do in the Morning Star. Now, it's all spread out. It is, I agree, and it's kind of annoying trying to remember where is everything. I keep losing the meat grinder for some reason. But it's immersive, I guess I would say. Like, you have to go to these areas to access this stuff. That's the hub area for the Morning Star for Darktide. Space Marine 2, while I am aware this game just came out and there are hub upgrades coming, or expansions I should say, we are still going to rate it because of how good this game is doing. The hub area for Space Marine 2 is very small right now. You have a data collection area where you can go and read some data that you collected on missions. You have the armory area that allows you to customize your Space Marine, your weapons, and your perks. You also have the launch bay where you can go and select a mission or select which game mode you want to play, campaign, operations, or the PvP Eternal War. But then you also have the newest area that they added. It's a battle barge area. And that essentially allows you to go in there with your friends or randoms if you can somehow convince them to get in there. And you're able to basically fight each other with your classes. Something simple, something small, but at least you get to test your character out and test your skill with your friends. That's it, though. There's not a lot in the hub area, even though in the campaign it's a lot bigger. And like I said, they are going to be expanding it in the next coming seasons. But as of right now, I'm going to give the point to Darktide when it comes to the hub area. There's just a lot more to do, and I know a lot of people say, well, the game's been out for 2 years. Of course there's more to do. It's been out for 2 years, but the only thing they've added to the Morning Star is the penance area. Everything else has been there since the beginning. Not a hate, just pointing that out. Next thing we have is my favorite thing, my favorite thing that keeps getting fucking monetized so I can't enjoy it, customization. Customization in Darktide is very simple. It's an outfit, you put it on and call it a day. You're able to change sections of it from your head, chest, legs, to your backpack and stuff like that. You're also able to change your victory stance, your emotes, even though no one uses emotes and the emotes are only from the Morning Star, and stuff like that. Very simple. But you're also able to, like we talked about earlier, customize weapons, putting a little charm on it, changing a skin if you bought it with the premium currency, and all that jazz. It's very basic. It sounds very basic because it is. I like the outfits that they put in it, but we're not rating on outfits. We're rating on how much you can basically customize. And yeah, it's either buy an outfit or buy a jacket, and like I said, it's all with premium currency. There is a non-premium currency store in there, but it has not been updated since the game came out. So you go in there, you buy the outfits that you like, and if you really don't feel like spending money, that's all you're gonna get. They have not updated it, and I think that's a real shame. I understand it's a live service game, they need money to fund it, but come on, throw a couple things in there. It's ridiculous that you're not. Space Marine 2, however, said, fuck it, we know we're gonna make money anyway, so here you guys go. Space Marine 2 allows you to access over 40 chapters of Space Marines that you're able to customize. You just have to buy them with your currency that you get while playing the game. And it's so easy. Once you start getting a high enough level that you can do grind ruthless nonstop, you'll have so much currency you won't even know what to do with. Space Marine 2 also allows you to customize each section of the armor. You can change different colors, you can put different patterns on, or you can go ahead and just select the chapter in the color area and you will look exactly like that chapter when it comes to the metal, when it comes to the paint, the metal that's showing, whether it's gold, silver, etc. You will look like the minifigures. You will, and it's awesome. That's one of the biggest praises I have been seeing, is that the armor in this game is so accurate. In fact, I heard a story that apparently one of the leg pieces on the armor was wrong, and Games Workshop actually made them go back and fix that. And while Saber laughs that, oh wow, we had to fix that because it was slightly off, that is such a good attention to detail. And I hope they're proud of it now than thinking it was just a nuisance. And it's awesome that Games Workshop cares so much that they're like, this needs to be correct. Now, depending on who you ask, that can be a bad thing because it also limits what we can do. And I bring this up because a lot of people want to see different armor variants in this game. And either Games Workshop is saying that it's not lore accurate, it's not happening, or Saber saying we'd have to do a crap ton of work. We're not against it, but we need to confirm with Games Workshop before we're able to start even working on it. For example, the Mark 6 helmet, aka the Beak helmet, is not in the game yet, but it has been leaked that it's on its way. That's awesome, but will we ever see a Mark 4 or a Mark 7 or any of those other types of helmets? Probably not. Now, when it comes to customization, there's no PvP in Darktide, so it'd be lame to count it against it, but I am going to mention it. Space Marine 2 does not allow you to customize the PvP Chaos Marines at all, and their reason for it is stupid, that they want them to be easily identifiable. No, like, I know a lot of people who do not agree with that. So I'm not taking any points off for it, but it is kind of lame that this happens. Now, when it comes to Space Marine 2 versus Darktide, when it comes to customization, definitely I'm going to give it to Space Marine 2. Going to be 100%. The armor and the looks in Darktide look awesome. I think they all look beautiful. I don't know about lore accuracy, though, when it comes to that. For example, the Krieg are there, and apparently the Krieg would not be at this fight at all, but the Krieg, you're able to look like a Krieg. Cool, but you know what I mean? When it comes to customization, Space Marine 2 just knocks it out of the park with how accurate their Space Marine models are, all the chapter armors, the Chaos armors if you wanted to, the weapons being able to be decorated and stuff like that. It just wins. It wins slightly. Darktide is not far behind. It's like right here. So even though Darktide loses in this area, it's not by much.
What is your duty? To serve the Emperor's will.
Next thing we have are the enemy types. The enemy types in both games are simple. Horde shooters. They're basically a bunch of enemies rushing at you that you need to wipe out before they overrun you. Space Marine 2 has the Tyranids and the Thousand Suns. Darktide only has forces of Nurgle. So that's a lot of chaos, disease-ridden civilians, but there are monsters in this as well. There's the Beasts of Nurgle, there's the Plague Ogre. Space Marine 2 also has this stuff though. They have Carnifexes, they have Hellbrutes, they have New Anthrorts. I know I butchered that, don't yell at me. But they also have a whole other faction to fight. So you're not just fighting just Tyranids in Space Marine 2, although a lot of people would be happy with that. But after the recent update, I think we're all okay fighting the Thousand Suns now. The Thousand Suns are not just another Horde enemy type too. They can be, if you count the cultists and the blue goatmen looking thing, but you're fighting Chaos Marines that are a lot more powerful. You're fighting Terminators that are dashing around the map, doing hell's load damage to you, and then getting out of the way. You're fighting Sorcerers, Space Marines, and stuff like that. There are a bunch of options. It's not just simply Horde enemies. Now, Darktide does have range enemies, the cultists, and stuff like that, but you don't really notice a difference when it comes to the normal enemies. There's Dread Gunners and Snipers and all that stuff, but in the end, they all feel like, yeah, this is one enemy, one Nurgle faction, etc. Space Marine 2 has the two, but I think I'm gonna go ahead, because of the diversity in the Nurgle forces, and the two different factions that play different in Space Marine 2 and Darktide, I think I'm going to go ahead and make this one a draw too. They're both very similar, but also both very different when it comes to what you're looking for. Darktide is more you're mowing down these enemies quickly so you can get out of there because you're just a simple reject. Space Marine 2, you're fighting stronger enemies with a bunch of enemies around because you're a Space Marine. You're expected to handle that. So I'm going to go ahead, because they're similar, I'm going to give both of these guys a point. The last section that I really want to cover today is going to be the levels. What do we have for fighting these enemies of the Emperor? Where are we going? What's going on? Etc. First up, Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 currently has 6 operations with a 7th one on the way. While I personally haven't gotten bored of these missions because I'm playing it for the gameplay, not the enemy types, a lot of people have, and I am going to acknowledge that. A lot of people have gotten bored with fighting the same 6 missions, and they're very linear. They're not linear when it comes to the types of enemies you'll fight, like a random Carnifex will spawn, a random Hellbrute will spawn, but they are very linear when it comes to like how you go through it. I'm trying to word this correctly, so please try to understand what I'm trying to say. For example, the Inferno mission, you have to go there and distract the giant horde so you can launch the bomb and kill a crap ton of Xenos. The Decapitation mission, you are literally hunting down the Hive Tyrant. You try to blow it up on the bridge, and then you have to go fight it personally. It happens like that every single time. That's what I'm talking about. When it comes to Darktide does have different missions, but you're able to do different missions on the same levels. You might be doing a mission where you have to guide a servo skull around, or you might be doing a mission where you have to purge the corruption that's around. So you're able to use the same level, but different objectives. In the end, I will be honest, it does end up with you just fighting tons of hordes regardless. And also, same with Space Marine 2, they can spawn random giant enemies, Plague Ogrins, Beasts and Nurgles, etc. And even the smaller enemies or the medium enemies can be completely random as well. You can suddenly turn a corner and then there's 100 Dread Gunners there and you instantly melt because you don't have a lot of armor because you're not in the Sardes. Not only that, lately the missions that Darktide has been doing have been a lot more linear. I don't know if they're trying to change direction when it comes to these missions. While they are linear, they are fun. The Rolling Steel Train mission that they just added, I love, and it's personally one of my favorite missions. But it is the same objective. Disable 3 bombs, grab some generator power, open the door, kill the boss, stop the train. Same every time. There's assassination missions where you have to go and fight a boss in the end, which is a personal favorite from a lot of the community because you get to fight a boss in the end. Who doesn't like fighting bosses in a Horde tier? It's fun. But when it comes to the levels, I'm going to be 100% honest. Because the Space Marine 2 ones are so linear, I'm going to give the point to Darktide. Because Darktide has a lot more chance of random that's not just random enemies. It can be possibly the objective too. And when I say random, you are able to choose this mission, by the way, in the hub, if it's available. But, like I said, it's just a tiny bit more diversity when it comes to it. There's still random hordes in Space Marine 2. There's still random boss chances in Space Marine 2. So, it's kind of like the customization. Darktide is slightly above Space Marine 2, but Space Marine 2 is right there. So, yeah, they're basically the same, but Darktide gets a slight advantage. So, looking at my notes for all the areas that I talked about, this was definitely not planned, I promise, we have a tie. And you know what? I'm okay with that, and let me explain. Darktide and Space Marine 2 are some of the best Warhammer 40k games we have gotten in a long time. Especially when it comes to playing with your friends. Something about just tearing through hordes of enemies, being one of the Emperor's chosen, as an Astartes, as an Inquisitor, as a reject working your way up, as fighting these enemies that seem like they never stop coming. But you know what? This game makes you feel like you're never going to give up. Like I said, people have gotten bored of the missions in Space Marine 2. I haven't, because I want to one day win this war, quote unquote. Just like in Darktide. The Darktide Morningstar war on the planet has technically been going on for 2 years because it's a live service game. So we haven't won yet. But with the weapons and the gameplay of both these games, it's so addicting. If these are the type of games you like, the Horde shooters, the Gauntlet runners, stuff like that, you're gonna love these, and you should love these. These two are my most played games in a long time. Once the Locked and Loaded update for Darktide came out, I checked it out real quick and was in love with it. It pulled me away from Space Marine 2. Before then, I was only playing Space Marine 2. So with both of them being the same, with both of them basically ending this in a tie, I'm okay with it. They're both fantastic games, and I said this in my Discord when the Locked and Loaded DLC for Darktide came out. I genuinely believe Space Marine 2 and Darktide are going to coexist perfectly fine. I know there was a lot of talk of Space Marine 2 was going to kill Helldivers 2. Clearly that's not happening right now. But no one worried about Darktide, which I was genuinely shocked about. But I guess it kind of makes sense. This Locked and Loaded update fucking nailed it in the park. And whether Space Marine 2 lit a fire under Fat Shark's ass or something, I don't know. I'm proud of both of these games. I'm proud of Saber. I'm proud of Fat Shark. These games are amazing. Can I really choose a favorite between the two? I really can't. I love the combat and the feel of an Astartes. You feel like a god among men. But I also love the feeling of being this lone soldier. I'll use the veteran for example because I main veteran. I love the idea of being this soldier that has survived a year of the 41st Millennium War. And you're still going, you're still hellbent on winning and surviving and showing the Emperor that you really do deserve to be here and deserve to fight and win for him and gain his praise. It's awesome feeling. So with that being said, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I'm okay with these two being tied. And if you don't like that answer, I don't fucking know. Choose one then. Thank you guys so much for watching this long video. This was longer than I thought it was going to be. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I was able to give some insight. A lot of people were talking about Helldivers 2 versus Space Marine 2. Not a single person I could see is talking about Darktide, like Darktide just died. Darktide has definitely not died. So I wanted to be one of the few people that definitely give Darktide some praise, and show you that I think it can stand with this giant. Remember, before Space Marine 2 came out, Darktide was the #1 Warhammer 40k game. At least on Twitch, I believe. I'll put that up here if I find it again. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you can, do me a huge favor and subscribe, please. I'm looking at my numbers, and we are so close to 600, and I want to get to 600 so bad before the end of the year. That would be amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.